two, take three.
Action, please.
A bottle of recusant Cellar's Petit Verdot is one of the few things that can make me stand watching Avoiding Babylon. Use code BASED, that is BASED, at checkout.
You know, I just realized.
What happened?
You know how we were talking about earlier how locals wasn't working?
Yeah.
I never got it to work.
Did you try?
Yeah. I tried one more time like an hour later.
So there's no local show tonight?
I could set one up while we talk.
Because I have some venting to do tonight. Well, if you guys didn't catch that opening video, Recusant Cellars, they are our sponsor. We love Recusant. If you guys can, use code BASED at checkout and you'll get 20% off this month only. After this month, the promo code goes back down to 10%. They're having a sale for Christ the King. Recusant Cellars is amazing. So we typically don't just jump into an ad right away, but Taffy came through with a good intro video, so we figured we'd run with it. Yeah, I have some ranting to do over on locals tonight, man.
It's going to start off early here.
Well, the thing is, Rob and I, okay, so the show topic tonight, I wanted to do this on locals, and I wanted to do the document on here, and Rob was like, nah, like, let's switch it up. So we're putting, like, this was going to be locals, because it's such a hard topic to discuss on here. But,
I mean, were they on YouTube,
right?
They were on YouTube, right?
Yeah, they were. It's such a...
We'll be fine.
I think we'll be fine.
Israel instead of Jews. YouTube doesn't care about Israel, right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I do have some thoughts on this, on the document, and a lot of it is frustration and anger. So we'll get into that on the other side, especially because not even whatever the document is, whatever, but it's more people's reaction to some of the things I said today. And like I hadn't had a chance to read them today while I was at work, and I came home, and one of the things I put out was I said I'm supposed to believe the hierarchy cares about the poor when they robbed us of the greatest treasure on earth. And the amount of just normies in my comments, like downplaying that, like, you weren't robbed of anything, they didn't take the Eucharist away, and I'm just like furious. Like, no, you don't care about the treasure that was robbed, but that doesn't mean you weren't robbed of a treasure. Like,
you don't realize how impoverished you are because of what they did to you.
I have whatever. We'll do that over there. I just have a lot of thoughts about it. Because whatever, we'll do it over there. Because I'm gonna rant. If I start, I won't stop. So, all right. So I did watch the entire Nick and Dave conversation, and there's a couple of things I took from it. One is just how much the ability to have this conversation on social media has changed, and a big part of that is because of both Nick and Dave. And Nick and Dave had like this weird kind of beef going on between them. And Nick was kind of like acting like Dave was a plant, and that he was like controlled opposition. Like they were allowing Dave's opinions out there, but they were keeping Nick out of the conversation. Now, that could be true. I don't know. But I've been watching Dave Smith for...
If he's not a plant, I know someone who is.
I don't get that. Who's that?
Candace.
Oh, they do discuss her too.
I'm sure they do.
Yeah, they discuss her too. Like, and Rob and I have talked about Candace, where it's like the reason they probably let some of her stuff exist is because she says such outlandish stuff that people could just write her off as crazy.
It discredits the whole movement, but discredits that whole side of the right wing.
It discredits any criticism of Israel is what it does. Like it's so, but we also had Eric Sammons on the show, and Eric Sammons ascribes very much to the Dave Smith school of thought, which is a very libertarian view where it's like, okay, we can criticize Israel, the state, because we don't want to go into any more foreign wars, and we don't want money going to Israel. Now that's like a very legitimate criticism, but to me, it doesn't touch some of the major issues. Now, Nick comes at it from a very identitarian point of view, where Nick is talking about how Jewish identity is very much a part of this conversation.
Yeah.
Where you and I have always taken this from more of a theological perspective. And I kind of see Dave Smith as like a stepping stone to like first, like even because of the amount of propaganda we've received around this issue, to just at least get to the point where you go, wait a minute, this is kind of crazy. Why is every single politician we have being
from either side of the aisle?
From either side of the aisle, why do they have an APAC person, which is basically a political lobby, donating to their political action committees and basically getting people elected, and these people have to then answer to them. So basically, either side of the aisle is always kind of doing something that serves the greater Zionist cause.
Yeah.
So that's like the first break in people's thinking, where they're like, yeah, that is kind of weird. If we're supposed to be America first, how come we're always worried about Israel's best interest before our own? What Nick talks about is more about identity politics, where, if you're Black, you are going to have in-group thinking, where if you're Black, you're going to look at what's best for the Black community. If you're Spanish, you're going to look out for what's best for the Spanish community. If you're Jewish, you're going to look out for what's best for the Jewish community. Now, Jewish people are in a unique situation where they have dual citizenship with Israel and whatever country they're in, because no matter where in the world you're born, if you have Jewish descent, they offer you Jewish citizenship. And they do that especially with people who are in positions of power, because they want them to have Israel's best interests at heart. So you'll have like a lot of senators and people in positions of high authority then have dual citizenship. So they're kind of always working for the greater betterment of Israel, even with their loyalties there over that of their country of origin at times. Like, so these could be people who were born in America or born somewhere in Europe.
Like the congressman who wears IDF uniform to Congress.
Yeah, it's kind of like just bizarre stuff. And I think both of them are correct in their assessments, but I don't really hear anybody cover the theological issue of it, which is where we start getting into talking with Father Maudsley and stuff like that,
Yeah.
So it would be interesting to sit down and have a conversation with Nick and Father Maudsley, where I don't know if we could ever make that happen. We do have a conversation with Father Maudsley lined up. I also
he's okay with Nick. So the question is, would Nick be up
would
for
Nick
it?
be okay with it? Yeah, that's a good question. So
I have a feeling we'd have a better chance getting him on with Father Maudsley than just on with us.
That's possible.
I think
that's possible.
Yeah, my wife just noticed locals isn't working. Imagine that. Good job, Hope.
I also was just asked by Damian Thompson from The Spectator. He invited me on to his podcast.
Really?
Yeah, today. He just an hour ago. And he said, I really like the way you present Avoiding Babylon, but boy, there's some scary views. Maybe you'd be interested in coming on my podcast sometime to explain the trad bro phenomenon.
The trad bro.
Yeah.
What views does he think is scary?
I would think my views on this issue.
On this issue?
I think. I don't know.
Is he like Gavin Ashenden?
Yeah. I know he was very upset with Catholic Unscripted when they spoke with Father Maudsley. So I mean, it's possible. I'm not 100%. Now, what's interesting is this conversation. Like when you get into remember the Trad Inc. conversation that was happening last week, where they were talking you had the Uber trads criticizing Trad Inc. I don't really hear this topic come up with those guys very often. So I'm interested to know what their position is on this whole thing.
What guys?
With just the whole the Israel conversation, what their position is on, do they think there's been influence in the church from after World War II and things like that? Like if you get into speaking with Father Maudsley straight up will tell you, do you question why the church no longer acts like the church? Do you wonder what it is that the church was so clear on things before the council? what happened. His position is that after World War II, the narrative that comes forth from that influenced the church so much that the church starts changing her teaching, starts changing her liturgy, starts changing everything about it. And he thinks there's no way to separate that from what happened in the church. Those two things are just totally linked together. So, which is another reason I'd be interested in speaking with Nick and Father Maudsley at the same time, because Nick seems to see all of the infiltration into society from Jewish people, but or Israel, or however you want to put it, but he doesn't see the connection in the church. So I'd be interested in that. Now, I did post a clip of Nick criticizing Pope Leo, which is funny because the Groypers are always so against criticizing the
There
Pope.
is one thing they're willing to criticize him on.
And we called this last week.
We did.
We called this last week when Pope Leo made his comments about the seamless garment. He didn't call it the seamless garment, but Pope Leo made comments saying that, are you really pro-life if you're against abortion, but you're for capital punishment? And the Groypers all got on everybody who criticized that comment, saying we were a-logging the Pope, and we were, there were a lot of things said. And then today I saw Nick had something to say about the Pope's comments on immigration. You want to play that clip real quick? I put it in the chat.
Sure.
So this is go ahead.
I was going to say, for everyone asking, yes, we know Locals isn't working right now. I did just set up another stream that we will switch to on Locals when it's time. So yeah, you can't watch this part on Locals, but when we tell you to go to Locals, it will be there, and we'll switch over to that. So
yeah,
and then I'll have the awesome job of trying to splice the two tomorrow morning.
But I have a lot to say over on Locals tonight, so we will do a local stream. All right, let's play the clip of Nick. It says Nick Fuentes slams Pope Leo for speaking out on Trump's deportation policy. Christopher Hale's tweet. And I see Grover found a way back in, huh? We'll see if he can hold out before
I'm willing to ban him just to make him create another YouTube.
No, leave him in. All right, so let's see what Nick has to say.
Yeah, here we go.
Why is it that the Pope is always undermining U.S. immigration policy? Because now I see Catholic priests in Chicago, and they're doing like protests against the deportations. And they're doing that because they're emboldened by the Pope. The Pope sets the tone. And now you have ecclesiastical authority, the clergy in America that are protesting this political decision. And it's like, you are the vicar of Christ on earth for a heavenly kingdom. I don't know where Jesus gave you the authority to tell us who we can and can't let in our country. These people are here illegally. They're fucking gang members.
Oh, guys, I'm
doing
sorry.
mass deportations, okay?
All
These
right,
buildings,
pause it. We'll do that on Locals.
these are gang members.
I tried my best to edit the curses. You know what? There's going to be curses in this stream, guys. We're playing clips of Nick and Dave, so if you guys have little kids around, you might.
It might be too late.
Yeah, sorry about that. And that might be better for the local show anyway, because that actually goes with that conversation, because it seems like what he ends up saying there is like, it just gets kind of demoralizing having the Pope always talk about this stuff. So we'll do that on the other side. Yeah, there's going to be viewer discretion in this episode. Okay, let's jump into the first clip of Dave and Nick, and they discuss Matt Walsh, Tim Pool, and I think you could throw Knowles in this in this category, and just certain people deciding not to have the conversation around this issue.
Anything personally against, but like Matt Walsh, Tim Pool. Tim's been very good to me. I consider him a friend. But they've all kind of taken this line of like, I don't care.
Right.
I don't care what's going on with Israel. Like, why are you guys so obsessed? Why are you so? And there's something so particularly enraging about it. And I think part of it is because I really genuinely believe, like, guys like me and you are like, we'd love to not talk about this.
Right.
That's kind of our whole argument.
Yes.
Our whole argument is that this shouldn't be a thing we even have to talk about. But saying, why are you obsessed with it? It's like in 2006, I'm sitting here and I go, look, I'm a non-interventionist, but why is everyone talking about Iraq? Like, why do you have to? Well, because that's where we're intervening. So like, how can you sit here and be like, I'm a non-interventionist? Like, you're taking the correct policy position from my perspective, so I at least give you credit for that. But the thing is, we are intervening. We are currently being interventionists. And also, like, if your whole thing is like, I want to focus on America, I don't want to go fight other wars. Well, who's pulling us into wars?
Right.
It ain't Lebanon. You know what I mean? Like, so like, it just seems like cowardice to me. Like, how do you get, and it does seem like that message is resonating with like some people, as I just think it's profoundly unfair. Like the whole point of all of this is that it is an American destruction of Gaza. This isn't Israel doing it. Netanyahu goes around and brags about what Israel can do. Israel can't do shit. Israel can only do things because they have the full backing of the United States of America. So like, sorry, if you're in the world of talking about these things, you don't get to pass on this one. Like,
right.
You got to have an opinion.
Yeah, I saw that too. And it's become very popular over the past year and a half. I see a lot of the young men, they watch Matt Walsh, they watch this other stuff, and they say, well, yeah, I just don't really care about Israel that much. I care about America. And I saw Matt Walsh say that on Tucker. He said, and you could tell that it is like a rhetorical innovation, because let's be honest, this is an issue that people like Matt Walsh don't want to talk about, because he works for Ben Shapiro and he knows, like Candace Owens, if you drift too far in that subject, you lose your job. And he likes having a job. So you get it. Now, this is an extremely contentious issue also, and it's very topical. It's in the news, and he knows the question's coming. Are you pro-Israel? Are you anti-Israel? There's people who feel very strongly about it. And you could tell this is like a rhetorical device. It's a cop-out where you can say, I'm not pro-Israel, but I'm not anti-Israel. I just don't care. And that really pissed me off, because it seems like you're feigning ignorance. You're either lying or you're really ignorant. And the reason why is because, be that as it may, that you don't care about Israel, we happen to be supporting their war, and it's actually hurting us.
Kill it that.
And there's other things too. Obviously, it's a big subject.
The reason I picked this clip is because we as Catholics give Walsh and Knowles a pass because they're Catholic. Like, these guys are in the political conversation, and we give them a pass because they're Catholic.
I was wondering this too. Her denim jacket's cool again.
Oh, Milo's been giving him hell for that denim jacket.
Because if so, man, I was the coolest kid in the world.
We give Walsh and Knowles a pass on this, and that is a cop-out where it's like, well, I'm America first, and I don't think we should be giving any country aid. I just don't care about the Israel subject. People have Israel derangement, like Tim Pool's been saying, people have Israel derangement syndrome, things like that. It's like, no, this is kind of one where if you're in this conversation, you can't just go, well, I don't want to pick a side. Let them kill each other. You'll hear things like that. There's no good guys. Let them kill each other. It's like, I don't know, man. Like, we're funding the destruction and genocide of a people. Like, we really are. And I don't know how you can not take a moral position on that.
Yeah,
it seems like too big of a scenario, like too big of a situation happening, and too much influence in our country in which way our foreign policy goes, to just go, yeah, no, I don't really have an opinion on this one.
Yeah, I don't think it's something we as Americans get to have no opinion on, when like they point out, like we are so so tied with it, and have been since the 50s basically. As a state, they wouldn't exist if it wasn't for American support, American weapons, American money, American intelligence, all of this. When they couldn't take out Iran's nuclear enrichment program, who had to step in?
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Yeah,
I mean, they didn't have the stealth planes and the MOPS, the massive ordnance penetrators, to literally dive a mile underground under a mountain and blow it up. They couldn't do that. They had to rely on us.
Yeah, it just seems like look, I think I'm probably guilty of it too. Like, there are some topics that are just so radioactive, you kind of just like, I don't really want to touch them. I find myself doing it with Pope Leo, right? Like, I almost don't want to get caught up in the fray of this argument, and then I worry, like I don't want to be a Catholic criticizing these things, but the fact is, like, at a certain point, it could become cowardice when you see certain things happening and you just don't say anything about it. And you just, so much of it is mimetic desire. You're afraid you're going to get criticized too much. In Walsh and Knowles's case, it is very much, they are, because I do think they have strong opinions on this. They don't want to lose the comfort of their job.
I think that's probably a good portion of it. Yeah.
There's no chance Matt Walsh does not have strong opinions on this, but he works for the Daily Wire.
And we know what those opinions are, because if they were the opposite opinions, he would be saying them, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, so we know what
his
those
silence
are.
is, his silence actually is him, like,
silence
saying,
is deafening.
Yeah, it's very deafening. And it's like, you can't just like, I don't know, man. I think we're getting to the point.
And I get it. I wouldn't want to lose my job over it either.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
no,
I get
know.
it. But when your job is commentary and you refuse to comment about such an important topic, then there is a problem there.
Yeah. And the reason I've chosen to talk about this subject as often as we have is because I think this is going to be the biggest issue in the church going forward. I do. I don't think the conversation is going to be about Novus Ordo and the Latin Mass. Like, I don't. I think this whole situation is going to come to a head eventually, and we're going to have to figure out which side we're on. And yeah, Bredale does defend everything, but she's also working for the Daily Wire. Mm-hmm. It's like this is not a light subject. Like, and especially if you don't know. If you don't know where to go on it. So, all right. So the next clip is the libertarian approach versus the identitarian approach. We'll go through that one. It's a little shorter, this clip.
Okay, here we go.
Also more extreme. Now, same is true of like Tucker, all the Tim Pool. People have been trying to get me on his book.
No, I've seen it. Yeah.
Right. And so, and why am I not allowed on? Of course, it's my view that I was canceled for this issue. And so to see you go onto the show, people say it's jealousy. Maybe there's a little resentment there too, but it was a bigger concern that as a Jewish person, and also, by the way, not just that you're Jewish, but as a libertarian, you come at it from a different place. You're a non-interventionist or Ron Paul guy. And I even have this disagreement with Tucker on some level too. So it's not just you. My big worry is that, is the conversation going to stop at, we need to end all these wars and like the neocons are the problem? Because my critique goes further, and it says that it actually does have to do with Jewish identity. Jewish identity is so powerful and so potent. Jews refuse to assimilate. They're so powerful. They're so tribalistic. They're loyal to each other. Not all of them, but a lot of them. And that is actually where the Israel loyalty proceeds from. It's this anxiety. We need Israel because what happens if it goes south here? We need to be powerful in America to prevent a majority from rising up against us. And it's kind of that identity issue, which, and that's why I'm open to talking to you or even somebody like a Bill Ackman or a Sean McGuire or a Shapiro and say, I recognize Jews are a part of America. They always have been, and they're some of the finest Americans actually. But people recognize it cannot go on this way where we have an open society, but they have this loyalty and kind of play by a different set of rules. And anyway, so my concern is that what it looked like to me is you're being brought onto the shows and they know maybe that you'll never go that far as a Jewish person, or maybe even as a libertarian. And a big red line was being drawn and saying, but you are still an anti-Semite. You are still banned on YouTube. You are banned on the shows. Fuck you. You're all the way over here. And that's why I like it. And I respect you. And I think you're.
With more preparation, we would have given these to Taffy to bleep out.
Yeah, it's not even that. I'm trying to I'm doing things while I'm screen recording these things, and I'm not even paying attention. Maybe I'm just so desensitized I don't even hear the F word anymore. But to his point, this was the conversation we had with Sammons. Sammons is willing to criticize funding Israel. He's willing to criticize the stance on foreign wars, but he's not No, I did. I'm telling you, I got a lot going on, guys. I still do have a job during the day. So, Salmons was willing to criticize like our funding to them and foreign wars and stuff, but he's not willing to look at, is it something more than that? And then Nick brings it to the identity conversation and says, no, it's because they stick together and they have loyalty. But I think it goes even further, and it's because there is this enmity between Christians and Jews from the time of the Old Testament, like from the time of Christ, right? And it goes back to all of the stories in the Old Testament leading to this. Now, you guys who watch the show regularly, you're going to hear me repeat things you've heard me say 100 times. But
imagine what it's like for me, guys.
Yeah, in case anybody new is watching the show, anybody that is maybe a groiper or somebody from Dave's audience is watching this, like the conversation goes even further, because this storyline of enmity between the elder brother and the younger brother, it goes back to the Old Testament. It starts with Cain and Abel, and it goes through Jacob and Esau, and it's even in Christ's parables. In Christ's parables, almost all of them have these, they usually have 4 meanings, but almost all of them have to do with the covenant, like the people of Israel. Christ coming, God sends his son and they kill him, and then the other wedding guests are invited, or the prodigal son, the prodigal son winds up, he gets the inheritance, and the older brother is angry that the father throws the party for him even though he squandered his inheritance. All of those stories have to do with this enmity between Jews and Christians, and it ends up to the point where there's even this reconciliation at the end of time, which is prefigured in all those stories as well, especially the story of Joseph and his brothers. There's 12 of them. They sell him into slavery, and then he winds up becoming like the Prince of Egypt, and he then reconciles with his brothers after there's a famine in the land. It's like, this is the story of Christianity, and that's how it's going to play out. But that enmity is going to stay there between Jews and Christians, and it's playing out before our eyes right now in such a way that in the last clip, oh no, I didn't even put this clip in. There was a section in the show where they talked about how things are getting so out of hand because they no longer have control over the media narrative like they did for so many years, right? I mean, after the events of World War II, you had 3 basic stations on TV where they could control the news narrative, they could control what kind of propaganda went through in movies.
And it was actually up and through the 50s and into the 60s. It was actually largely like I won't say Catholics controlled it, but there were Catholic institutions that restricted a lot of stuff on TV. But then in the 50s, as Israel is rising to prominence and gaining support from America, you have the church's influence, especially in media, declining. And it's like that is, for lack of a better term, that Israeli influence replaced that Catholic influence, and no longer did you have the what is it, the League of Decency, or what was that?
Yeah,
called?
it was the League of Decency, where there's
Right.
the Catholic coalition who actually were able to prevent nudity and debauchery from getting into films and TV and things like that. And this was when, like, the church this kind of leads into what I'm so upset about with this latest document as well. It's like, we'll do it on the other side, but they have this monopoly on propaganda and narratives that come forth, and that is starting to fracture and fall apart. And they talked about how now that this conversation is kind of just out in the wild, like Nick is no longer banned everywhere. Somebody's saying that Nick actually does talk about this stuff on his show. I don't watch Nick's show regularly. All I really do is catch clips of him here. Like, I've known about Nick for 10 years, but I never watched his show. I just kind of see whatever clips are let out there. So I don't know how deep Nick does go into the theology of this whole thing, but the clips I see rarely talk about that. And it's a very important part of this story, because what's happening now with them losing control of the narrative is kind of like what happens in 2016 when Trump gets elected. Trump gets elected and the left loses their minds and they let the mask slip and they just start going crazy. And then with the COVID narrative, everything they put out with that, like it was almost like so blatant that it opened people's eyes. They were like, this is just insane. And that actually is going to wind up happening with this whole conversation soon, because they are losing their grip on the narrative. And when you have a dog cornered, they kind of go crazy and do whatever. And that's kind of the position Israel's going to be put in soon when Gen Z is done with this, with this stuff. Like you could see it as a very big drop off when you go through the older generations. Like if you talk to older guys, I've tried to talk to my father about this stuff. My father just won't hear it. He still thinks Israel is our greatest ally and things like it's a very difficult conversation to have with people who grew up watching things like Sophie's Choice and like whatever Schindler's List and these movies. I mean, every time you turn around, there's another World War II movie coming out, and they're just it's something that is so deeply entrenched into Jewish identity that the stories themselves have such an effect on Jewish people that they are terrified that anytime anybody says anything about them, they think another Holocaust is coming. It's like it's done like crazy damage to the psyche of the Jewish people as well. It's not just the effect it had on society at large. It's a very big issue. So the last clip I clipped was about the actual Holocaust. So Dave asks Nick what his views on the Holocaust are, and I'm surprised they were able to talk about it on YouTube, but they were. So we'll play it.
Okay. Remember, not all channels are treated equally by
that
YouTube.
Is true, but I think we'll be okay. I don't think he says anything too bad here.
Conversation to have, but I am curious.
For me, it was never really about the Holocaust in itself, because early on, I watched a lot of documentaries, like the canon of Holocaust denial documentaries and essays, and I found a lot of the arguments compelling. And then I saw that other people were pushing back on that. And I have good friends of mine who are like, they're fellow travelers, let's say, and they adamantly insist it did happen. And they send me blog posts and things.
Yeah.
And at a certain point, you sit down and say, so is this really about World War II historicity debate or historiographical debate? And to me, I'm sort of missing the point. To me, the Holocaust is just like, it is just a central part of the Jewish identity story, which is that if the white people get too much power, they're going to kill us all. And that means if we don't have enough power, they're going to kill us all. If they can critique us, they're going to kill us all. It's wrapped up, and this has been pointed out before, that more Jewish people think that the Holocaust is central to their identity than believing in God is central to their identity. And that just tells you about what Jewish identity really is and how it's political. And so to me, what matters more, I don't know. I think it was exaggerated. I think it was embellished. I don't know that 6 million exactly died. But I don't know. I'm not an expert, and I don't really even care about being an expert. To me, it's more about, like you said, I don't want this trauma imposed on me and for it to define our political order, because that's really the issue.
Well, that part I think is 100% reasonable.
And Bobby's saying they'll ban us for copyright, but I think that's only if Dave would have to hit us with a copyright.
Their sensors, their auto sensors could detect that we're playing it for so long and do that, but we could claim fair use, and then Dave could say no, it's not fair use, and which one, he's a libertarian, supposedly.
I don't think he would.
And two, like it really is fair use, but YouTube's auto sensors could ban us in error.
I don't think
they did.
Yeah, like they. All right, so I think we're fine. I mean, it's kind of hard to argue with what Nick said there, right? And I think that's kind of the point most people are at, where it's like, okay, I'm not even going to argue the historicity of the event anymore. I want to actually say, okay, like, we can't allow this event to dictate everything anymore. And I think that's kind of the place the younger generation, excuse me, I think that's the place the younger generation is at this point, where they're just like, okay, look, this event can't dictate everything. And it has dictated everything. Like, you cannot separate the Second Vatican Council from that event. You can't separate, especially the pontificates of John Paul II and Benedict, from that event. Benedict was in the Hitler Youth. He was forced to be in the Hitler Youth. John Paul II lived in Poland throughout these events. Like, these things had a very big effect on the church over the past however many decades, right? Now, in conclusion, before we jump over to locals, here's what I'm going to say. I'm glad that these two had this conversation, because there was this friction between the two of them, and I think both of them are important to the conversation. Even if I don't care what your opinions are of Nick, I don't care what your opinions are of Dave, this conversation is important, and we couldn't have this conversation even 5 years ago. Like, the culture has changed over the past 5 years, and Nick is a very big part of pushing that needle. And I'll also say this: Nick is now 26, probably going to be 27 soon. He said some outlandish things when he was younger. He still, he has a very gallows sense of humor and things like that. But he seems to be maturing. He seems to be, especially when he's having conversations with other people. Like, I watch him on PBD and I watch him on Dave. He wasn't bombastic. He wasn't crazy. He sounds very reasoned. I don't know what he does on his own show. I'm sure he's still being funny and making jokes and stuff. But when he is serious, he's talking about very serious things. He has some very important political takes, and I'm glad he's part of this conversation, because he's pushing the needle very much in culture. There's very few people who have had as big of an effect as he has, especially over the past 2 years, in my opinion.
Yeah, the more I see of him, the more I like him, I guess.
Yeah, you've softened a lot on him, which is interesting, because
now most of not every groiper. There's some groipers I like and that follow me and stuff, but some of the groupthink among the groipers and the way they all react and pile on people it's too much. But
yeah.
As far as from what I've seen from Nick himself, yeah,
and especially, look, I've seen, especially lately, the things I've been seeing from him is he's very much careful in how we handle this conversation is important, right? Like, this cannot lead to any kind of animosity or hatred towards any group of people. Like, especially us as Christians, like, our job is to actually love our enemies, even to the point of martyrdom. I put out a tweet today saying that I would kiss the hands of my executioner. I would kiss the feet of the Pope who's punishing me as a traditionalist. Like, I will love those who hate me. Like, that is actually what we have to do as Christians. Like, we have to love them to the point of martyrdom, love them to the point where we will lay down our lives, like St. Maximilian Kolbe. Like, that is actually the way to go about this. You shouldn't be riling up any kind of hatred or animosity to anybody. And from our perspective, this conversation needs to be had specifically because the Antichrist will be the Jewish Messiah.
Yep.
And Catholics need to be aware of that, because as you see the heretics,
will also be the Protestant Messiah too, probably.
That's the point, right? So I was just about to say that. So, like, you're seeing this Christian Zionism appear, and you're seeing these fanatics of Protestantism where they're going crazy for Israel and their support for Israel. And they will even use the Bible and misquote it, take it out of context to make it appear as if he who loves Israel loves me, and think like whatever the weird ways, they misquote Genesis. He was instrumental in my conversion because it struck me that he has the courage to talk about topics no one else did. Like, that's one thing you got to give this kid, man. For all the times I've backed down from a subject because I was afraid of the pushback I would get, this kid says whatever. And part of that is because they banned him from everything, from saying little things, So Eric McCabe's video last night, I watched it this morning. I think Eric McCabe is crashing out. I think he's I mean, he came on and tried to have a conversation with us, and now he blocked me on Twitter. I mean,
He blocked you on Twitter.
Yeah, he blocked me on Twitter. There's something going on with him where, like, there's this unhealthy obsession of Catholic converts to be liked by Protestants still. It's like this deep shame with some of these guys that they converted, and they just want the Protestants to still like them and let them know that we're the nice Catholics. We're not like anybody else, to the point where they'll denigrate their fellow brother Catholic at your brother Catholic's expense to ingratiate yourself to the Protestant. It's disgusting. It's really disgusting. And I'm not a fan of it whatsoever. But getting back to the reason this conversation is important is because, scripturally speaking, I mean, you're talking about, you go back and read Ezekiel, and Jerusalem is the faithless city, the harlot. Like, that is the description of Jerusalem.
Every church father saw not necessarily the modern state of Israel, but the Jews as the whore of Babylon, as Babylon,
as the unfaithful ones, because God always ascribed idol worship. He described it as if it was faithlessness in a marriage. So when they say that God never revokes his covenants, yeah, okay, fine. But he also doesn't revoke the curses that come with that covenant when you break it. And that's kind of the situation that has been going on. There actually is one more clip I want to play of Barry Weiss when she was on Joe Rogan.
I did not know till this week that Barry Weiss was a female.
Yeah, a lesbian female. She runs the Free Press. She has a podcast called Honestly. It's kind of hilarious. She's on a podcast called Honestly. She's married to a woman. Yeah, honestly. It's kind of hilarious. So yeah, she gets into explaining how replacement theory is a myth, and listen to what she says here.
Like replacement theory as in like the racial one, or as in like supersessionism?
No. Like, watch. Just listen to what she says. We'll criticize it after.
When I heard the Jews will not replace us, right? I heard it in like the plain meaning of that phrase. Like, the Jew is not going to take my job. The Jew is not going to like take my job in the corner office or whatever. But in fact, it was like a reflection of this replacement theory ideology, which is that brown people and black people and Muslims and immigrants are coming to replace our white civilization. And the Jew's job is basically to pass as a white person, but in fact do the bidding of these people that we deem to be not pure.
Where does that come from?
That is a deeply, deeply ancient anti-Semitic conspiracy theory, right? It's the idea of, well, let's go back to the New Testament. Let's go back to Jesus, right? What happens in that story? The story there is that the Jews go to Pontius Pilate and say, like, this person's unacceptable to us. And in the mythology of that story, the Jews get what was then the most powerful empire in the world, the Roman Empire, to do their bidding. And you have this line in the book of Matthew that is so, I mean, the bloodiness of this line cannot be quantified, where he says, his blood be on us and on our children, which goes, down through the centuries to justify the killing of untold numbers of Jews.
Shouldn't have said
but
it
the
then.
idea of the Jew as sort of like the wily manipulator, as the Jew as having proximity to power, not being in power, but being able to sort of be the puppet master, pulling the levers of power. You see that play out in lots of different iterations.
We don't get I don't want to get a copyright on this, but I mean, I'm not saying it. She's kind of saying it.
I like the Marxist language there, the mythology that's being told, the story.
I have to say something though, because this is an important point where
Pilate had an AIPAC representative.
So there's an important point here where when you get into this conversation, you see that Israel is the only one allowed to have an ethno state, right? Like they're allowed to have an ethno state. We're not allowed to have one. And part of that is because when Germany had an ethno-state, they came together and they saw the damage and they were like, we're doing something about this. Now, that is their biggest fear, is that if you have an ethno-state, something like that will happen. So that's the motivation behind these open border societies that George Soros is pushing. Like, that's the motivation behind an open society where it's just a borderless world, and it's so that your culture is degraded so much that you don't get together and say, wait a minute, these things are bad. We have to put a stop to them. That is the motivation. And she's telling you straight out, like, she's saying it's a myth, but I mean, if this show doesn't get struck, I don't know. Yes, absolutely correct. All of the New Testament, the early church is Jewish. I mean, it's not what happens in the early church is a schism. It's a schism. Those who went out from us, they claim they were part of us, but they never were of us. This is a schism. So it's like the people of God continue through. The new covenant comes. The people of God continue. They're the same people. There's a schism. There's those who break away because they don't want the new covenant. They don't want to share the new covenant with the Gentiles, is what it is.
Yeah.
They're in their mind, the idea of sharing the covenant promises with the Gentiles is horrifying. Absolutely not. They will control everything and we will be subordinate to them. Now, that idea exists still. It continues on, and it's, I mean, look, it's a hard topic to discuss on YouTube, but if you want to finish out what she says, I don't know, but
is it worth finishing out?
I mean, she goes through and explains.
Is it gonna make me more mad?
Maybe, but people should hear it.
Time, right? You see it. I'm trying to think about useful examples for your listeners, but that is sort of the trope, right? And it is an ancient one, but it's being utilized in really new ways. So it's not literally that the Jew is going to replace us. Is that the Jew in a way is sort of like the greatest trick the devil has ever played. And this is the language of Eric Ward, who wrote this amazing essay called Skin in the Game. And he talks, he's a Black anti-racist activist. And he talks about figuring out how anti-Semitism is kind of the linchpin of white supremacy, because the Jew appears to be white, but in fact, he's not white. I mean, this is all based on this lie that race is not a construct, right? Which it is. But they're saying that the Jew is not white, but he appears to be white, but in fact, he's loyal to these people who are coming to sully America. And so when you have someone like Congressman Steve King saying, we can't replace our civilization with someone else's babies, like, what does that mean? What is that idea? It is so deeply anti-American, because the idea of America, right, is the idea that Americanness is not about bloodline. Americanness is about a shared set of values and ideas and fealty to those ideas. So the idea that someone else is, what is Jew?
Question that everybody's trying. What is an American? Like, what does it mean to be an American? And look, the idea of like mass migration also is so that, and even the integration of schools and things like that was so that your daughter comes home with a guy that doesn't look like you. Like, it's just what's going to happen, naturally. And it's that is the idea behind it, is so that you don't have a tight knit cultural community, because then you care about your culture. And when you care about your culture and you don't want it to be destroyed, you fight for it. But if you don't have a culture to fight for, it's easy to divide and conquer a people.
The whole idea of a melting pot is it's so subversive in that it makes you think that everyone melts together and you all become one, but really what it does is it separates you from your history, from your people, from your culture, from your religion, and it makes you this individualized little atom, separate from everyone and everything else, and it does that to everyone all at once. And it it keeps people away from each other. It keeps people from
Look,
reaching out to help someone else, someone else like
look, listen,
them.
I've told you, I watched that documentary about the creation of New York. It was like over a couple of centuries. It goes from like the 1600s to the Trade Center coming down. And
Mhm.
when Robert Moses comes in and he builds the highway system, when the automobile is invented, he builds the highway system. He just breaks up these beautiful Catholic communities throughout New York City. It's like you have these beautiful Italian Catholic communities, these Irish Catholic communities.
Mhm.
They're all these tight-knit communities where your cousins and your aunts and uncles are all living together. You all gather around the parish community, like the community parish, where the priest is involved in your lives and everybody knows everybody. And then they build a highway right through those beautiful communities. They stick all the black people up in these tenement buildings, and everybody scatters out to the suburbs. And the suburbs is like, man, it's like the decimation of community.
They're designed to where you can't even walk from place to place, right? They're designed for
you don't
cars.
know your neighbor. You have no interaction with anybody. It's just the total disintegration of culture. I'm telling you that this now. Look, I don't know how much of this is orchestrated from the top and stuff, but it's just kind of what has happened. Yeah. Right. So race is just a social construct, except for them. Except for them. For them, it's a very real thing, and it's like they're the only ones who actually allowed to have this racial ethnic identity, and we're not. And this issue is going to be very prominent, and I'm glad for the guys who have pushed the needle and made the sacrifice and gotten themselves canceled over it. I'm grateful to them because they paved the way for guys like us to even have this conversation. So Nick, Dave, thank you both. I think what you're doing is important, and I hope the conversations continue. I'd much rather you guys be speaking and having conversations than you guys be at war with each other. I think a lot of this stuff is stuff that needs to be talked about. So we're gonna head over to locals now. If you guys aren't subscribed, I have quite a rant tonight. I want to talk. I want to talk about what Nick had to say about the immigration thing, and it's going to lead into what this latest exhortation was. Because the things that I'm seeing in my life compared to what the hierarchy is talking about they're just light years away, complete light years away, because I work around poor people more than any of the people, all the people praising this document. I promise you, I'm around poor people way more than you guys. All the people that are praising his outreach to the immigrant, I work with immigrants. So like, I know what it's like to actually deal with this stuff in person. And that's not what I need help with, because I am compassionate to the poor person. I do have compassion for the immigrant who comes. Like, I've actually made my work friends who barely speak English come to my children's graduation parties and things like that. That is not like, that is your call as a Christian, is to, especially like to have like a brotherhood with your fellow Catholics. Like our because the real globalism is the Catholic Church. Like, that's actually the proper way to do it, where we have the same cult, we worship at the same altar. So that does bring down the dividing wall of hostility. But what we're talking about in this document is very frustrating, because I'll do the rant over there. We'll do it over there. So if you guys want to hear it, I have a lot to say.
The link is pinned in locals, or not locals, in the live chat. For everyone watching on YouTube, it's not going to be really any different than what it normally is. Me and Anthony will just have to leave this stream and go into the other one I created. But if you go over to locals and we're not there, we will be there momentarily. So
yeah, we're gonna have to end this stream and then we'll jump over there. So just sit tight and wait for us, and we'll start the show over when we get over to locals. And we'll talk to you guys over there. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you next time.